we recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
I haven't celebrated Festivus in years. What is your interest?
Well, just tell me everything.
Many Christmases ago, I went to buy a doll for my son. I reached for the last one they had, but so did another man. As I rained blows upon him, I realized there had to be another way.
What happened to the doll?
It was destroyed. But out of that, a new holiday was born. A Festivus for the rest of us.
That must have been some kind of doll.
And at the Festivus dinner, you gather your family around and tell them all the ways they have disappointed you over the past year.
And is there a tree?
No, instead there's a pole. Requires no decoration. I find tinsel distracting.
Frank, this new holiday of yours is scratching me right where I itch.
Let's do it then.
All right.
Festivus is back! I'll get the pole out of the crawl space.
Welcome to the first, I hope this is an annual event, Festivus episode here on Iowa Everywhere. We are presented, this is a CW pod. We are presented by our friends at Steeple Ridge Bourbon. And we are recording this at night. I usually don't drink during the show because I usually record these at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Look at that. Is that a stiff pour, gentlemen?
I don't know. It depends how big the ice cube is.
It's a big ice, but
it looks like a dainty glass that you've got.
I will continue to refresh.
There's no light pour of Steeple Ridge. Some of that stuff is just blowing pure heat.
That's a.
Is it one of those that's like 114 proof?
The Iowa Everywhere bottle. Yeah, it's insane.
57% alcohol.
The folks over there in West Des Moines, where Andy lives, they can't handle that kind of heat, that kind of Bondurant heat, that Erling, Iowa heat.
Honestly, though, like you guys both, you guys are really into nice cocktails, and I appreciate that about you. You make Andy, you make phenomenal ones. I don't ever drink cocktails. I just drink straight bourbon. So when I do drink those now, it's like Van Winkle just taking them down. It's like a glass of Gatorade.
We tell that story quite a bit about how Andy had to cut Van Winkle off at his downstairs bar.
He had to drive.
Like a year or so ago. Van Winks was drinking like 2-1 compared to all of us.
I believe.
And he's like, I'll have another. Night. And Andy's like, okay, how about a water?
Yeah.
And he puked a lot that night too, from what I understand.
I'll bet. It is funny because Hassel. A good old fashioned takes a little time to make, and so there's kind of an unwritten rule between the one who's making it and the one who's taking it. You got to give the guy a little bit of time, right? I mean, enjoy it. Don't just. It's not a shot. And I'm making drinks for 3 people, and one of them is Van Winkle, and every time I finish with you guys, he's already done. I'm like, dude, let me make myself one.
That's how my dad was when I first kind of introduced him to cocktails. He would drink it like a Busch Light. And people always would make him all of his, because he doesn't know how to make a drink. Like, he still to this day does not know how to make any drink. So in order for him to get a cocktail, he either has to go out to a restaurant or have somebody like Andy or I make it for you. Andy, I know this is supposed to be a Seinfeld episode, but it reminded me of when my dad begged you to make him a Bloody Mary at Dave Zavolinsky's house one morning.
What a combo.
Andy mixed everybody Bloody Marys in the morning that was already up. Well, my dad comes waddling up the stairs from sleeping, and he said, well, where's mine? And Andy's like, do you even like Bloody Marys? And he said,
absolutely sounded like something there was no way in hell that Donnie would.
He said, I've never had one, but I'd like to try. So Andy goes back over, spends 15 minutes mixing this spicy Bloody Mary with this fresh bacon in there, all kinds of good stuff. My dad takes one sip, spits it out, does not touch the Bloody Mary again.
Just let it sit there.
Well, anyways, we thank our friends at Steeple Ridge for sponsoring CW Pod. We are in the Channel Seed Studios. This will be fun. This is the first time we've made time to do a mutual pod with the two shows. Of course, we're missing Keith, but for some reason, Keith if he likes Seinfeld, I don't really know about it. He's not really in our Seinfeld conversations. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know that he's much of a Seinfeld guy.
Because us three and now Aiden we're welcoming Aiden to the group. Aiden's as big of a sicko as we are.
And Aiden's the one who's bringing the heat with his sweater tonight. He went out and bought a Festivus sweater just for this show. Look at that.
Pole and everything.
He's got the pole.
You're going to get a lot of
Pizza
play out of
strength.
that shirt. A lot of play.
Oh, you're going to be wearing that for years. Just don't get too fat.
Yeah.
That's the
Thanks.
That's the
Remember,
key to that.
It was probably close to 15 years ago now at Andy's house in Urbandale. Was it Williams? You brought over a Seinfeld trivia game one night?
Yeah, I still have it.
Yeah.
It's like that DVD game, the Seen It. Remember those games?
Yeah, it was probably, I would guess it was like 2009 or 2010. And I wiped the floor with you guys. It wasn't even close on Seinfeld.
Williams won.
No, he did not. I did.
Yes, Williams won. He won.
What are you changing history? Changing the course of
Williams,
history?
you know that I won. I kicked your ass.
You're being
game.
dumb.
No, I'm not.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. You and I, at that point, we would have conversations that lasted for a long time where really nothing that we said ever ventured outside of Seinfeld quotes. That was just it. That was like, and so we were like, there's no way that anybody else knows more about Seinfeld than we do. And Williams comes over and he can ball. And we're like,
I can play. I can hang.
And I think, that game that we played, Williams won.
It's kind of a fluky game too, though. It is,
and I don't know that necessarily determines the person that knows the most about Seinfeld or anything. But
I just remember Wives were there, and it was like this big production. Zavolinsky.
Wives were there. I remember is us three in the Seinfeld game.
Yeah, I don't cancel Wives either.
Oh, there were people watching. Zavolinsky.
Well, I'll tell you what. Anybody else that was there was not happy. They were not having fun.
Can you imagine sitting around watching three guys play Seinfeld trivia game when maybe you don't watch Seinfeld? That was actually how I won Andy over.
Yeah, it was. Tell the story.
So I came to Des Moines from my dorm with the priests at St. Ambrose because Andy left for Kansas City. Yeah. And so I took Andy's spot at WHO 13, and I was a sports reporter and anchor.
That was after you had that radio job where you were that St. Ambrose TV station did that feature on you.
SAU TV where they were holding me hostage.
You're just ready to kill all those people.
I just like being here and being left alone. It's nice. So I get there and Andy, he comes back because he hated it in Kansas City, and I wasn't sure. I didn't know Andy at all. He didn't invite me to his wedding. Nothing. None of the sort. But then Andy starts hearing me quote Seinfeld, and he's like, "You know what, this kid?" Because I was 22.
No.
What were you, Andy?
Exactly what you said was, and because I didn't know how I felt about you at the time.
Because what, you were mid-30s. I'm 22, straight out of cottage.
Yep. And I'm eating a peach at my desk, and Chris comes up and he goes, "Is that a Mackinac peach?"
I knew you were
And I was like, right there, I was like, "Oh my God. Okay, I see what we're dealing with here." Yeah, so from that point on, and I imagine there have been many friendships that have been struck over a Seinfeld a commonality, right? A quote or just a scene that somebody remembered or brings up or laughs at, because there's something universal about about Seinfeld, and then there's also something that's kind of exclusive about it. I think everybody liked it, but the people that there are some people that just really plugged into them. And when you find another one of those people, it's like you instantly know that you have more in common with them than you do with other people, right? I mean, you're just like, oh, okay. First of all, you know their sense of humor is more sophisticated. You know that they are somebody that is into rewatching, episodes over and over again, which not everybody likes to do. There are a lot of people that are just like, I just watch it once and I never want to watch it again.
That's how I normally am with movies, most TV shows. But with this, for whatever reason, with Seinfeld, it's the complete opposite. Because I will find something new every time I watch an episode, and it will grow on me. Like I was watching season 2 and season 3 over the weekend, and I remember I hated those seasons because I just thought they were too old, they were outdated. It's not the case. You go back and watch those. I mean, I was watching the library episode over the weekend.
That's where I always thought Seinfeld began, was when Bookman entered the picture.
Well, that's really, I think, when Seinfeld started taking off. I think it was season 3 that happened. And the library cop's name was Bookman.
Wait a minute, when the library cop's name is Bookman? Well, that's like an ice cream man named Cone.
So I'm watching Bookman, and I'm folding laundry. And this is probably the 50th time I've seen this episode.
God, your wife must have been really sick if you were doing laundry.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't doing laundry. I was just folding the clothes. That's what I do. I fold my clothes.
That's nice.
That's the one thing I'll do.
Do you fold the panties her mother laid out for her?
You mean the panties your mother laid out for you?
Just such an odd thing,
and he leans across the desk.
Weirdo thing to say.
Well, she started talking dirty to me, so what'd you say?
And he squirts that ketchup bottle though when he leans over for the dirty.
Yeah,
What'd you say?
And they never reveal what she said.
No,
which was great because it leaves you guessing. But I was watching the library cop scene where he comes into Jerry's apartment and kind of introduces himself for the first time. I rewound it and watched it 3 more times after that. And I decided that I think that is my favorite scene in Seinfeld history. And Aiden, that's one of the clips that you have for us today.
You took this book out in 1971.
Yes, and I returned it in 1971.
Yeah, 71. That was my first year on the job. Bad year for libraries. Bad year for America. Hippies burning library cards. Abby Huffman telling everybody to steal books. I don't judge a man by the length of his hair or the kind of music he listens to. Rock was never my bag. But you put on a pair of shoes when you walk into the New York Public Library, fella.
Look, Mr. Bookman. I returned that book. I remember it very specifically.
You're a comedian. You make people laugh.
I try.
You think this is all a big joke, don't you?
No, I don't.
I saw you on TV once. I remembered your name from my list. I looked it up. Sure enough, it checked out. You think because you're a celebrity that somehow the law doesn't apply to you, that you're above the law?
Certainly not.
Well, let me tell you something funny, boy. You know that little stamp? The one that says New York Public Library? Well, that may not mean anything to you, but that means a lot to me. One whole hell of a lot. Sure, go ahead, laugh if you want to. I've seen your type before. Flashy, making the scene, flaunting convention. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. What's this guy making such a big stink about old library books? Well, let me give you a hint, Junior. Maybe we can live without libraries, people like you and me. Maybe. Sure, we're too old to change the world. But what about that kid sitting down, opening a book right now in a branch of the local library and finding drawings of peepees and wee-wees and the cat in the hat and the 5 Chinese brothers? Doesn't he deserve better? Look, if you think this is about overdue fines and missing books, you better think again. This is about that kid's right to read a book without getting his mind warped. Or maybe that turns you on, Seinfeld. Maybe that's how you get your kicks. You and your good time buddies. Well, I got a flash for you, Joy Boy. Party time is over. You got 7 days, Seinfeld. That is 1 week.
Everything is incredible about it. I don't know how many takes it took, but it seemed like he did it in one. The timing, when Joy Boy hits, that's it for me. That's the climax.
There's no way it went one take though, because Jerry, as we've all seen now in the years since, as we can go back and Yeah, I mean, he breaks so many times on that show. As you can go back and now watch ad nauseum on the internet, I mean, you just see him breaking over and over again, no matter what season it is. I would imagine he got better at it later on. So this is early on. There's no way he's not dying laughing. You could see him fighting back the laughter. He must have, I bet they had to do 4 or 5 takes of
It's
this.
even cool how they do the audience track, how they basically give Bookman a standing ovation. They're like,
It was such an incredible performance that I've always loved that character, just the premise of it all. But when you watch that scene, he was as perfect as any actor has ever been in any scene, in any movie, in any show ever. And it was so, it was so Seinfeld, a library cop that wants a book that's been out for 20 years.
Yeah,
what about
it's the mind of Larry David.
What about the conservative librarian going to the arms of Kramer in the background at the end of the scene? Yeah. Kramer's just warping her mind.
Well, there was a scene later on in the episode.
But even that, though, is something that probably people have thought of. I mean, you see some bookworm, nerdy woman, but she's still kind of hot. Yeah. She's kind of got that My Fair Lady thing going on where you're just like, oh, I wonder if I could make her into somebody.
Little she's all that.
Well, yeah. If under my tutelage, I could turn her into a pretty hot regular woman. And so he's watching her. So there's this whole separate storyline going on there.
So, Andy, I'm going to let you do all your clips here. You sent a bunch. And when I was thinking of, I wanted to contribute to the show, and like, there's one episode where it's like, man, I need a Seinfeld kick. And I don't know what drew me to this one, but it is the one where Kramer and his little person friend Mickey are being paid by the hospital to act out sicknesses for the medical students, and Kramer draws gonorrhea.
In your package, you will find the disease you have been assigned and the symptoms you will need to exhibit.
Bacterial meningitis. Jackpot!
Gonorrhea. You want to trade?
Sorry, buddy. This is the Hamlet of diseases. Severe pain, nausea, delusions. It's got everything.
How about you? You want to trade?
Sure.
Okay, what do you got?
The surgeon left a sponge inside me.
Good luck with that. Well, I got gonorrhea.
That seems about right.
That's what they gave me. Showmanship. Maybe that's what my gonorrhea is missing.
Yes, step into that spotlight and belt that gonorrhea out to the back row.
Yes, I will. I'm going to make people feel my gonorrhea and feel the gonorrhea themselves.
And are you experiencing any discomfort?
Just a little burning during urination.
Okay. Any other pain?
The haunting memories of lost love. May I? Lights. Our eyes met across the crowded hat store. I, a customer, and she, a coquettish haberdasher. I pursued, and she withdrew, and she pursued, and I withdrew. And so we danced. And I burned for her, much like the burning during urination that I would experience soon afterwards.
Gonorrhea.
Gonorrhea.
Hey, anytime Kramer is smoking something, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Anything. Cigarette, pipe, cigar.
He drinks the beer with the cigarette in it.
Here's to feeling good all the time.
All the time. Yeah, it's funny. I think when we were talking about putting this episode together, like the first topic that came to mind, because we've all talked about this so many times, is who is your favorite extra character?
Yeah.
Who you have your core four. but which extra character added the most to the show and is really your favorite? And you can debate whether or not some characters are so big that they actually just become another one of the leads, or some of them don't appear enough. But my opinion, I think you guys will probably agree with this, but I feel like my favorite extra character, and he was one that took a little while to get up to speed. But
I guess?
Yeah.
Frank Costanza.
It's got to be Frank Costanza.
I mean, first of all, it's a different actor, John Randolph, who starts, but then at some point Jerry Stiller comes in, and I can remember my dad talking about Jerry Stiller, like as soon as he saw him on Seinfeld, he's just like, oh my God, this guy was like in the 60s was just this absolute killer comedic actor. And he's so funny. He's talking about, Ben Stiller's parents, basically. Jerry and Ben Stiller's mom, they're just great. And so as soon as he comes onto the scene, my dad just parks himself. And every time Frank Costanza comes in, my dad is there for Seinfeld. And he is so, it's because that he's like going off script, right? I mean, Jerry Stiller's going off script. He's doing his own thing. He's forgetting lines, but it doesn't matter because the stuff that he ends up throwing in ends up being even funnier than the actual script, I'm sure. But my favorite Frank Costanza episode and moment in the episode, and I love this about Seinfeld more than any other show, its ability to take just totally random shit and just make it cook, right? I mean, like some just really random topic that you just knew that came out of some assistant producer had some funny story sometime, and they were, sitting around the table and they're like, oh man, yeah, let's put that into an episode. And so they give this part to Frank Costanza, and he's sitting there, and this is Elaine who's worried that the Korean women in the nail salon are talking about her behind her back, which is a totally different type of little anecdote. But the writers decide that Frank Costanza somehow knows Korean, and he is going to be the one that can translate for Elaine, go into the nail shop and tell Elaine what these women are saying about her behind her back. So Frank meets with Elaine, where she finds out how he knows Korean.
I had an affair with a Korean woman.
Mr. Costanza, I don't...
No, I feel I need to unburden myself. I loved her very deeply, but the clash of cultures was too much. Her family would not accept me.
Mr. Costanza,
Maybe it was because I refused to take off my shoes. Again, the foot odor problem. The father would look at me and say, no, inawa shiyo, which means this is not my kind of guy.
That's a very random clip.
That is my favorite line from the entire series.
Because you can kind of see him like thinking, no, this is not my kind of guy. This certainly was not in the script.
So I don't think it was the script, but you know what I did hear? I heard that this is actually a line from one of the Buddy Rich tapes.
Oh,
Yeah, Jerry has pointed this out. He said, there are a number of times where we were quoting the Buddy Rich tapes in the actual show, and he listed this as one of those times. So, but my question is that written in there for Frank, or does he just grab that line because he knows it and he's forgotten what the real line was? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
That turns into the Bette Midler.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Bette Midler.
There's no Bette Midler.
The softball game where he's just like, get some talent, then you can mouth off. And Bette Midler's just a bitch. She's really hard to, right? I mean, really hard to deal with. Nobody likes her, and then George just gets into it with her. And Kramer's just smitten. Oh, it's a great episode, but so he knows Korean because
I didn't know
he was in love with a Korean woman.
I didn't
he was
know
a
if you were
Bible salesman.
Going there, or the genius of Frank Costanza having PTSD from Vietnam.
Oh my God!
As a cook.
Yeah, that's like that's like one of those times where I'm like, all right, maybe this is going to jump the shark here. This is too much. Because first of all, what's he in his 70s? Suddenly he's supposed to look like a soldier in the Korean War. But it's still so funny. He's so funny. He's just like funny everything, right? Funny looking, the way he talks, his delivery, what he does with that character, just angry all the time.
Stop short.
Yeah. Hair trigger temper. His arms are too long for his body. Oh my God, that character is so damn funny.
And
I have one of those
voicemails that he would leave.
Did you get
anytime he would leave a voicemail, it was gold.
Aiden, did you get the Frank Costanza wheelchair clip?
Yeah.
Pulled up. What? This is one of my.
I don't remember this one. This refresh my memory here.
Okay, so it's when they park in the handicap spot, and they were in Frank's car because they didn't all have like vehicles in New York, and Frank was being given an award. Yes. For giving back to handicapped people, and then they
needed Frank's car because it was big enough to fit the TV,
the big screen TV for the Drake.
Yeah, Drake.
Yeah, the Drake was getting married, right?
Yeah.
So they park in the handicap spot, and here's what goes down.
This is our best model, the Cougar 9000. It's the Rolls-Royce of wheelchairs. This is like you're almost glad to be handicapped.
So now, what's this got?
Inductive joystick, dynamic braking, flip-up arms. It's fully loaded. I put Stephen Hawking in one of these 2 months ago. He's loving it. It's rated #1 by Hospital Supply and Prosthetic Magazine. How much? $6,200. Do you have something a little more less expensive? All right, this one's about 8 years old. Not a scratch on it. It was owned by some lady who only used it to go from the bathroom to the kitchen to feed her cats.
But this'll get you around.
Ah, sure. It just doesn't have any of the frills of the Cougar.
Like what?
For example, your tremor damping.
Now, what's that?
It helps to control the direction regardless of the operator's tremors or spasticity.
Well, is it all right if I try it?
Hop in!
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, when I see someone enjoying themselves like that, it reminds me of why I got into this business in the first place. How much? How about $240? We'll take it.
Personally thank our gracious host, Frank Costanza, who has earned the Silver Circle Award and is our unanimous choice for the United Volunteer Representative of the Month. Yes, due to his tireless efforts, he has personally raised over $22,000, and that's a lot of wheelchairs. On behalf of the United Volunteers of Greater New York, we thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Mr. Costanza, yes? You're under arrest. What for? Reckless endangerment of public safety, violation of Traffic Code 342A.
What's that?
Parking in a handicap spot. Let's go.
George!
Just a great example of how the episodes always come around in like the most coincidental way.
And of course the wheelchair salesman is just like a used car salesman. Yes. This one's like you're almost glad to be handicapped.
The only other character I would put in Frank's category, and he's not a like regular recurring character, but man, David Putty. Oh, it's just one of those guys that just can't get out of the mind.
I think it's an Arby's night.
I don't know where like that character would have come from. I mean, he starts off as like the just kind of dim-witted auto mechanic, and you just see him a little bit, and then eventually he's dating Elaine. But yeah, the high fives, and he's there kind of late, but. The episode where he's the face painting New Jersey Devils fan is so damn funny. And he starts yelling at the priest.
I like the Jesus fish
El
one.
Diablo.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's the same episode. He's trying to get Elaine to
Stole my
steal
Jesus
the newspaper.
fish. Yeah, well, he had changed all of Elaine's radio stations to Christian rock.
The presets, yeah.
Yeah, the presets. I love. You can tell the episodes that come out of the brain of Larry David, or probably one of his acolytes there that thinks the same way. But you just know that at some time he was having a conversation that was just like, where he's really insensitive, but it's still really funny to consider, and it's probably something like the rest of us considered. Like, you can imagine him having the conversation about the old man that Jerry goes to help. Jerry and George decide they're going to spend some of all this free time that they've got, to do a little good, and you think about it, and you're like, and people, we've all thought about that before. I mean, a lot of people probably have, where you're just like, those people it's so sad. They get so old and they're so isolated, and they just really want some human contact. And it would be, so nice if we gave a little bit of our time. And then you could just almost hear Larry David being like, yeah, but what if one of them what if they're just a dick? What if they're just assholes and you don't want to help them?
What if one of them has a giant goiter on her neck?
And you really don't want to help them, or one of them doesn't want to be helped. Like, you end up being worse off than that person. So, of course, they spin that into an episode, and it's just genius. It's funny as hell. But my favorite part of that episode is the old man that Jerry draws and gets to interact with.
Hi, I'm Jerry Seinfeld. The agency sent me.
The agency? What agency? The CIA?
No, the
who let you in here?
The woman.
Oh, her. She steals from me. Steals my money. She said she doesn't speak English. My ass, she doesn't speak English. Plays that freaking voodoo music. Tries to hypnotize me. She thinks she's going to turn me into a zombie and then rob me blind. Well, I wasn't born yesterday. I might drop dead today, but I sure as hell wasn't born yesterday. Now get the hell out of my house.
And then the other guy, George gets annoyed. He's so annoyed by this other guy because he doesn't think about how close he is to death. How could you not think about it? How could you be so self-absorbed that you don't sit there and think about how you're so close to death?
To be so close to the end, and you don't think about it? No.
And then Elaine's woman is talking about Gandhi rubbing his bald head all over her naked body with her fucking goiter.
Are you looking at my goiter?
Of course it gets sexual with Gandhi, like somebody that you're just not supposed to talk about that. You're not supposed to bring Gandhi into the sex talk. Oh, my God.
And then they end up taking his records. Doesn't Newman show up?
Hey, that's that idiot that took all my records. They take his records and he just kicks Kramer right in the ass. It's, oh my God, that's such a funny episode. It's just so
trash, garbage.
Yeah, he's going to throw out the records.
Wait, you're going to throw all this away? Well, that's what you do with trash, you idiot.
Yeah, idiot. Yeah. I love that one. Of the big four, who is your favorite character?
It's easily George for me.
I could see that.
Easily George.
I mean,
Williams, what about you?
I mean, I think I have to go Kramer.
Kramer, I think, is the one that gets picked the most.
Yeah, I would say George
so
or Kramer for sure would be one of mine. But I mean, Kramer, like, what's interesting about him is he's never like the center of the plot line. He's always this sideshow that, I don't know, like the Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
Like, God, there's so many funny things
where he's taken karate.
And I always wonder,
it doesn't ever occur to him that, he's taking karate with
totally ruined this for me. Both of my daughters are in karate, 5 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
The class after them, there is a grown man our age who does karate with the kids.
No way.
But that happens. It does happen.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Eddie was in that kind of stuff too. Don't you think that was the genesis of that episode?
They're all
Kramer?
the same skill level.
Yeah, they're the same skill level.
Yeah.
But one of them's 6'5".
Yeah,
but I can't not
But in the
every
class,
time
they don't really fight, though. I mean, they're just going through the movement,
But
so it
you
doesn't
still-
really matter. But you picture them fighting.
And you can't not think about that Seinfeld episode every time I see that guy going out onto the mat with.
If I wanted to learn karate, I would not do it just because of that. Because if I had to go into a room and fight these little boys,
the little fists of
I would
fury.
just think about Kramer and how it's a joke and never do it.
Kramer he's probably my favorite character, and I don't have a really good reason for that. I mean, he is more slapstick, and George is more some of the stuff that maybe you can relate to a little bit more. But at some point, I don't know exactly what point it was, but they let Michael Richards just cook, right? I mean, they let him just kind of okay. Let's quit trying to put guardrails up around him. Let's just let him be.
I think Kramer was absolutely more. Would hit the genius level more than George's character would.
Yes.
George was just like a puppet of Larry David and living out Larry David's.
That's the thing. And I didn't have HBO growing up. So I had never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm until I was out of college. And I had a job and streaming came around. You appreciate George so much more when you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, because you see, it's Larry.
Yes.
It's what Larry wants to be.
And that's been such a great thing for Seinfeld, is to have Curb Your Enthusiasm. And it's gone on for, how long has Curb Your Enthusiasm been on?
I want to say the first episodes were around the year 2000, 2001. I mean, it's
more
been
than
over
20 years.
I think
They
so.
just had an episode where Richard Lewis, in his dying state, basically, taking it all the way to the end of his life. Yeah, and Curb Your Enthusiasm is absolute genius in its own right. But the Kramer character, though, and then the fact that at some point they decide to let Kramer have his own characters. Right, where he's not just going to be crazy Kramer.
Dr. Van Nostrand.
Dr. Van Nostrand. And any time that's on, I'm pulling up a chair. This is my favorite part.
So I like what you've done there.
May I help you?
Yes. I'm Dr. Van Nostrand from the clinic. I'm going to need Elaine Dennis's chart. She's a patient of mine, and I don't think she's going to make it. It's very bad, very messy.
I see. And what clinic is that again?
That's correct.
Excuse me?
From the Hoffermandorf Clinic in Belgium.
Oh, really?
The Netherlands?
Where's my chart? Did you get it?
No.
What happened?
I don't know, but now they got a chart on me.
It's so funny. There's so much physical comedy in there that you don't even pick up on, and also watching, outtakes from Seinfeld over the years. We've all watched a lot of those. You see a lot of those where he's so funny that he's making everybody laugh. Mm-hmm. He's making Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jerry Seinfeld laugh. And then he has to do the scene again, and Michael Richards gets kind of pissed. Sometimes he's visibly pissed that he has to do it over again. But can't you kind of understand that about him? There's so much that he puts into those scenes, and then
it's hard to do it the same way.
Oh,
twice. Yeah.
I was watching something recently where he was on a show like a Leno or a Letterman, and he was talking about, and it was a pretty recent clip, talking about all the physical stuff that he would do in Seinfeld, and the planning that he would make was meticulous, all the way to whenever he would fall or do something like that, he made sure he had back braces and padding, and it was he made sure that he wasn't going to set himself up for, because he did so many things that could have put him in danger.
Right.
He made sure he was taking all the proper precautions. That's not something you really think that the Kramer character would do. But he did.
He falls off a stage during the fashion show and stuff. I mean, he really is kind of putting himself out there. And the other thing about Kramer is that, how old is Kramer? I mean, he's somewhere between.
That's the thing, you don't know anything about him.
And 60 or something.
How does this guy pay his rent?
Well, yeah,
right. No job.
He doesn't have a job.
Just mooches off Jerry.
He does pick up women. Has no interest in any sort of long-term anything. He just totally lives in the moment, day to day.
I'm really mad at myself because I saw this one the other night. I should have submitted it to Aiden when he cancels the mail.
Yeah.
In Newman, so we haven't brought up Newman, and he would be right there with Frank Costanza.
I think when it was airing, if you polled people, who's your, outside of the top 4, who's your top character? I think when it was airing in those later years, I think the majority of people would say Newman.
That monologue he does when they are at the post office and Kramer's trying to cancel the mail, and he knows that the postmaster general's in the background, like watching all this. Oh, he probably has the most famous monologues, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the one with Bookman that we were just talking about. But let me ask you guys this. I think this is another question that a lot of Seinfeld fans bat around all the time. Who is the best friend of Kramer? Who's your favorite Kramer buddy?
Bob Sacamano.
Well, you don't see him though.
But you don't see my favorite one either.
Jay Riemenschneider.
My friend Jay Riemenschneider eats horse all the time. Because what was it? Somebody was like, "I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse."
Well, it's like saying you could. Well, that was when they had the bike, and I'll tell you, I'll give that bike to the first person that could solve my back problems. Kramer solves it and is like, "Yeah, you can bring that bike over whenever you're ready."
Yeah,
right. Kramer, I didn't mean that.
It's just something you say, like, "I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse." And he's like, "Well, my friend Jay Riemenschneider eats horse all the time. Gets it from his butcher."
But just go down the list. I mean, Kramer's got Mickey. We already talked about Mickey.
Love Mickey.
Newman. Jackie Childs, who is another absolute scene stealer.
Yeah.
Who
Your
else?
Face is my case.
Oh, he's got Brody. And
I forgot about Brody.
God,
the Mike
Good
guy
pull.
that says Jerry's a phony, closes his thumbs in the car.
That was they were there for the Tyson fight, right?
You're right. You see a lot more than I guess I thought. I was thinking the majority of Kramer's friends you never saw, like Bob Sacamano, like Jay Riemenschneider.
What about
you'd see them, but you wouldn't see them much.
The episode where Peterman steals his stories. There's all those guys sitting around getting drunk.
Yeah,
and Kramer can't tell his story more. You didn't follow him.
Right.
You did not follow him much.
Who's the best Elaine boss? So she's got Mr.
So there's Pitt, Peterman.
No, wait, not
Pitt,
who's the guy
Peterman.
at Pendant Publishing?
Pendant, those bastards.
Lippman.
Yeah.
Lippman. Okay, and then
his son falls in love with her.
Mr. Pitt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Lippman is all mad that she's using all the exclamation points.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was cold, so I went inside and put on my sweatshirt. But Mr. Pitt and then Jay Peterman, those are just
my favorite's Mr. Pitt. I think Mr. Pitt had the
Peterman. Man,
you think Peterman?
I love Peterman.
The Mr. Pitt episode where
he goes to Burma.
Where Mr. Pitt becomes Hitler, and he has the ink stain on his lip.
That's when
our stock prices will rise high.
That's when he's merging Morgan Creek and Poland Spring.
Yeah, Molen Spring.
What are you going to call it? What's the new name? Molen Spring. Moland. Mr. Pitt.
You guys, I think this will build street credit with me. At one time in my life, for about a year, I changed my voicemail to George Costanza's answering machine, and I replaced George with Chris. Check it out.
Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep. must be out, or I'd pick up the phone. Where could I be? Believe it or not, I'm not home.
George, pick up. I know you're screening for Allison.
Hey.
So, coffee shop?
Nah, I can't. She knows I go there. It's not secure. Hey, I got another call coming in. I gotta let the machine get it. Bye. Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep. I must be out, or I'd pick up the phone. Where could I be? Believe it or not, I'm not home.
George, are you there? I hate that stupid message. I know you're avoiding me. I'm at the office. Please call me. I've got to talk to you.
Hi, Allison. Oh, I guess you're not at home. I probably should have tried you at the office. Anyway, good to hear from you. Really looking forward to the ball.
George is the one that provides the material, right? I mean, his relationships, his jobs, his apartment situation, his parents. I mean, he's the one that's got. He's a driver of the show's content.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
So often, where he's in these situations where you are asking, oh yeah, I've been in that situation before. I always wished I did this. And then they would make a show out of that. Or they would, he would be in a situation that we've been in and we wish we could do again and we're embarrassed about. And then you see George in that situation too. And you realize you're like, okay, the rest of the world does this too. It's not just me. There's a perfect example of that. Okay. I mean, seriously, because this would happen. I mean, I was a bus boy and I didn't have any money and these people would not eat their food, like wouldn't touch it. And I would take it back and we would take the French fries and put them into a to-go bag and take it. And I mean, it was eaten out of the bus tub basically, but so what? You knew it was fine. Well, you know where I'm going with this. I'm talking
absolutely.
about George eats out of the garbage.
George, you are such a gentleman.
I'd argue if I could, Mrs. Emery.
Here we go. All right.
Just outrageous positions to be in. I mean, he's at his girlfriend's parents' house, really nice place.
And he's doing really well. He's doing really well with this girl.
Jerry has a great line in like the next scene, right?
Yeah.
George is telling him about you were eating trash.
His refuse.
Or how about when George, it's kind of a similar situation and a similar reaction. He's at this party, goes into the bathroom. He had been taking his shirt off to go to the bathroom for some reason. He forgets to put it back on, walks out shirtless, doesn't realize it at all. Like what?
But that's with that 3D art, right? That
oh yeah, he was like, oh, because you're trying to unfocus your eyes.
Oh yes,
yeah. That Elaine had framed for Kramer, and then Mr. Pitt is just obsessed with it for a while, and then yeah, he's looking at it. Isn't that it? Isn't he looking at that? He's in the
looking
bathroom?
at some kind of art in the bathroom. Yeah.
What about Rebecca DeJournay?
Rebecca De Mornay.
Yeah,
De Mornay. There you go.
Yeah. Which is an actress. I don't know if you know that or not.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
The homeless don't want your toilet books.
Yeah, Rebecca De Mornay is this hot, petite, blonde actress who screws Tom Cruise in Risky Business.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
She's like an 80s sex bomb.
If you would have told me, if you just would have said the name Rebecca De Mornay, I would have been like, oh yeah, the homeless lady. She looks out for the homeless.
The
people
homeless advocate. Yeah. This big, heavy black woman.
The homeless don't want your stumps.
She's in there twice, right? It's it's two different scenes with her. It's the muffin as well.
The muffin top. Yeah. It's
top of the muffin to you.
Because they would just like pull like random names of people that they knew and stick them into the show. And then it was kind of like their inside joke that they would do. What about let me throw out one more question for you. Which is the worst season? The first or the last? Well, let's put it this way. Which season is worse? The first or the last?
The first season technically only has 5 episodes.
Yeah.
I would say the first, but I'm totally biased as well.
To me, if we're just saying the first season is those 5 episodes, it's definitely the first season is worse. I mean, it's the Seinfeld Chronicles, the Stakeout,
there were like 2
the
pilots,
robbery,
right?
male unbonding, and the stock tip. And they were all...
You have those memorized?
No, I've got it up. No, I've got it up courtesy of Wikipedia.
Here we go.
Okay.
So to me... But I feel like you should combine the first and second season.
Okay, well,
and that
just say the
you.
first 10 episodes. I mean, how many episodes are in the final? But bring up the final season.
Yeah, bring up the final season. I want to see what those episodes are.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
And the final season was season 8. Were there 8 seasons?
No,
8 or 9, right?
I mean, those last seasons had a lot of episodes.
Damn, those are long.
Lot.
Okay.
So season 9 is the last season.
Season 9, okay.
And there's 24 episodes if you split the finale into 2. There were some.
That's a lot of.
There were some really
Season
good.
9 has Serenity Now, the Merv Griffith Show.
Oh,
the strike.
The Merv
I mean, the
Griffin
strike
show.
is why we're all here.
Yes. Yeah, that's Festivus. I think the Merv Griffin show, is that the last truly great episode?
Such a good episode.
It's so good. It's so
shuts it
goddamn
down.
random too.
It's got to go to a more edgier content.
How about
losing ratings?
You want to talk about edgy content? How about the Puerto Rican Day Parade?
Oh, that's never on, right? Like, don't they never show that one?
Yeah, no, I guess
not on in syndication. No, you can find it on Netflix and such.
And they were upset because he was burning and stomping on the Puerto Rican flag, which, as silly as that is, can't you see, like in Puerto Rico, if they did that with an American flag, there being a bunch of people just pissed as hell about that?
Yeah.
If they were doing that, I mean, people get nuts about their flags, and I don't get it, but I do. But it's a shame because the rest of that episode is really funny.
I just watched it the other day to get a refresher.
That's with the waterfall grotto, isn't it?
Yes, where Kramer needs to find the absolute nearest.
He's got to
bathroom.
shit. Yeah, Kramer has to shit.
So he pretends to be, who is it, like E.G. Pennypacker?
Yeah, A.G. Pennypacker.
Wealthy industrialist, bicyclist.
Philanthropist.
And philanthropist.
Bicyclist, yeah. How many bathrooms are there? There are 4. Where would the absolute nearest one be?
I still don't know what an importer or exporter is. I'm 40.
Just sends them.
Focus on the importing. You know what I'm trying to tell him? Got to focus back on the export.
Yeah. What does he export? Matches?
Yeah, that one's so damn funny. But yeah, that's the Puerto Rican Day, and but I mean the ones, obviously the contest is the one that.
Oh yeah.
Like when they came out, I remember I was in college when that came out, and I can remember America being shocked the next day.
Really?
Yes. Huh. Like not angry, but like everybody was just like, if you hadn't seen it before, everybody had it recorded on their VHS tape, and they would cue up the tape and say something to the tune of, "You are not going to believe what this episode is about." And then they would play it. And you were watching, you're like, absolutely everybody could relate to it. It's one of those things that just isn't talked about. and for the umpteenth time, like sometimes stuff isn't talked about and they bring it on Seinfeld, but the reason it wasn't talked about is because it was just one of those things and you just moved on. Nobody talked about it. This was like jerking off is something that like everybody talks about, you know, they do it and they talk about it, but you don't talk about it on television. And so I feel like I could see like the scene around the table where they're just like, okay, how do we go about going there?
Did you sense that when the episode of, not that there's anything wrong with that, when they thought that they were
of
gay?
course not.
Somebody thinks they're gay, yeah.
I feel like that would have been edgy back in the day, to an extent.
I mean, it probably was. I don't remember that's released, but yeah, I mean, that's that same vein though.
Yeah,
right?
we didn't talk about gay people in the early 90s. Like you just.
Well, I mean, you did. You were just
there was like a negative.
They were just insulting them. That, you know, if you were talking about them, you were bashing them. You know, people were insulting them. But this was like, you know, this is New York, and so they're probably a little bit more progressive, and they're saying. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but still, I mean, like you're like, put that aside. Okay, not saying there's anything wrong with it, but what if you get in a situation where somebody, you're making people think that you're gay, but you're not. Mm-hmm. How funny would that be? How do we go there, right? And they figure out a way to go there that's really, really funny. It's like the episode where Kramer is the pimp. With the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yes. I haven't seen that one in a while, but I watched the last season because I wanted to revisit the last episode, and that was on the montage show, you know, the one that played before the finale. But I will say, when I watched that last episode again, and I know, you know, it gets, you know, Larry David is ashamed of it basically, and a lot of people didn't love it. But there are still some great parts of that finale. And the way they bring all those people together that you may have totally forgotten about, and they're back. Yeah. And you realize all the horrible things that these four people have done over the years. It's pretty damn funny. And of course, you've got Jackie Childs leading the whole thing. I'm raising my grade for the finale the older I get and the more I rewatch it.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a hot topic. When you have a show like that, oh my God, it's hard to wrap it up. I mean, not just the last episode, but really like the last 5 episodes.
Well, especially one where it doesn't like go episode to episode. Like I can just flip on season 6, episode 4.
Yeah.
And you don't need to watch anything prior to it. You know, It's just there.
They usually stand alone pretty well.
Yeah.
They do.
It's not like there's not a lot of loose ends to tie up in the last episode of Seinfeld.
I mean, there's some references to previous episodes that you get from time to time, but for the most part, they stand alone.
When it aired, though, and Williams, we're the same age, but were you watching Seinfeld when it was on? I was.
Yes.
In middle
I absolutely
school.
Did, and
I remember
my dad and I watched them religiously.
And I would watch with my dad as well. We were all looking like, are they going to kill themselves in an airplane? Like, are they going to kill themselves off in this last episode? But then when that didn't happen, everybody was looking for something that would say, well, wow, they've left the door open. Maybe they'll come back. And that was always the hope. And what did they get sentenced to prison for? A couple of years. So you're thinking, maybe they come back. And they never did. And as Aiden points out in the comments, Curb Your Enthusiasm started in 99. A year later, I mean, Larry David has no break. I know he wasn't fully a part of Seinfeld those last couple of years. He came on for the finale, but he starts Curb like right away. But those seasons are so, I mean, you go 5 years between seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm, so it's so spread out. But 25 years now for that. It's crazy. It's been over 25 years now since Seinfeld has been on the air. But when I watched those episodes for the first time, I saw them in a completely different light, because I remember when I saw the contest for the first time, I thought they were just talking about having sex. I thought that they meant they were not going to have sex.
You don't understand that?
It took a few years, because I don't know how old I was, maybe 5th grade. It took a few
you weren't
years.
Masturbating in 5th
when
grade?
you're watching it or when you're jerking your crank?
that was always my thing. I got the remote in one hand and the other remote, the joystick in the other.
Aiden, so does this show look old to you, Aiden? I always want to know.
For reference, Aiden, you were born after the last Seinfeld episode aired. You were born in what, 2000?
I'm always shocked at how well you know these episodes with your age.
Yeah, so so my freshman year of college, it was all online classes. So me and my roommate watched every show we possibly could, and Seinfeld was one of them. Well, it just happened to be the last one that we watched, so we only got to like season 5. But then once I started to get to know C-Dub a little more, it became clear that I needed to finish it.
It's good research for the job right there.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a couple references that I don't get. The one that really comes to mind is Federal Express.
Oh, yeah, when Elaine...
It's FedEx. But
Elaine
had
been gone, and she clicked on the buzzer.
Federal
She goes,
Federal Express.
And he buzzes her up, and I think Kramer or George or Kramer, one of them was like, "What are you doing? He could have a bomb." But you're right. Like
I don't realize that it was called FedEx is a abbreviation for Federal Express.
Well, I've always known it as FedEx, so it took me a second to be like, "Oh, it's FedEx." But
what do you think KFC is? I'm just curious.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay. Well, you get that. Well, I was wondering if.
I wasn't sure.
I was wondering if there was more stuff there.
Yeah, like a generational gap.
And that leads us right into the Kenny Rogers Roasters episode.
Yes.
Which is so damn funny. You know what? I was just thinking, what is your favorite, like, Kramer fall?
Kramer fall.
Kramer crash. I just thought about the last episode when he's trying to get the water out of his ear.
Yeah, crashes into the cockpit.
He smashes.
Kramer, what are you doing? We shouldn't be jumping around on a plane. What are you doing?
And he crashes so hard into that door when he's gone to the Price Club and he's bought all the beefarino that he later feeds to Rusty. But he's carrying all that stuff down the hallway. I have recorded that scene for you, Hassel, and sent it to you on the phone before. Because he's they just cut to the hallway, and it's just Kramer with all this shit from the Price Club. He drops 3 cans, steps on one, wipes out totally, and the whole thing just goes, oh, my God.
I like it was when I think he was in the Calvin Klein offices.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was when he was trying to sell the perfume, but they end up, like, Calvin notices him. And he's like, well, take your clothes off. And he strips down to his little white underwear. And they're complimenting him about, his look, his body, his rugged masculinity and all that. And he's like leaning up against almost like a curved wall. And he just slides right off it and falls down in his underwear in front of the people that are going to make him like a model for Calvin Klein.
I don't know if I have a favorite fall, but you just reminded me of when when Jerry starts shaving his chest.
Oh,
that's just an old wives' tale.
Is it? What is that? What is that?
That's a play on the 90s movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer. And he's like running around in the park and he's scratching and he starts, but then he goes, that feels good, as he starts scratching his chest. But yeah, that's a play on Wolf, as there are a number of movie references in there from the 80s and 90s.
We totally should have pulled the clip. This is one of the best scenes, is the Keith Hernandez Magic Loogie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that was
JFK.
playing off of JFK, which had just come out.
Yep.
That's playing off. All right, so we're going to run out of time here, and I have to play this clip because it's so damn funny.
Let's get it in, yep.
All right, so one more George for Hassel, because George is his man. But so George is he doing well here, where he goes to the kid's birthday party? He's doing pretty well with a girl, right? The girl likes him. It's working out. And
I thought that hadn't there been a strike against him before that, though, but then he kind of smoothed things over. All was going well. Kid's birthday party, though, a lot of people.
And Jon Favreau is there as a clown. And I think like this whole scene came from a conversation probably with Larry David where they're talking about Bozo, who is this clown from before I was even born, I think.
I remember Bozo.
I do too.
Yeah, well,
WGN.
He had a show, but the show was Bozo the Clown.
Yeah, right.
And somebody's like, do they really have to put the clown in there as well? Don't you know that it's not Bozo the accountant? It's Bozo the Clown. So I think that's probably where it started, is that kind of conversation. But then he's just assuming, he's like, it would be he's the only clown that anybody can think of. But then he goes, and Jon Favreau is Eric the Clown. George gets in an argument with him. Things start to unravel with the girlfriend and everything. And then somebody smells smoke.
Oh, Sadie, please.
What's that smell? Smoke? Everybody, I think I smell some smoke back here.
He knocks over that woman in the walker,
throwing kids off of the door onto the ground to get out. I had to lead the way.
Is that the worst thing George did, or was the human fund, creating the fake charity for the holidays?
God. Oh my God! A donation has been made in your name to the Human Fund. Money for people.
George's jobs are a whole separate sidebar, right? George's jobs, he's bad at all of them. He doesn't ever really actually do any work. You never know what he's actually qualified for.
Who's his boss at the Yankees? And they go to that old song Downtown. For clues
Mr.
on
Morgan?
Yeah, Mr. Morgan.
Well, Mr. Morgan and Mr. Morgan was the guy that he said looked like Sugar Ray Leonard. Who was
the Terminator.
Who was the white-haired guy who got abducted into the Sunshine Cleaners?
The cult.
Yeah, that's who I was. Because he's giving
what
him
the
all
hell
the
was
tips.
his name?
He doesn't know what he's supposed.
That's not Mr. Morgan. That's
no. Mr. Morgan is the one who kind of gets blackballed because he doesn't get to sign the card.
Wilhelm.
Yeah,
Mr. Wilhelm. Mr. Wilhelm.
And he goes under his desk to sleep, and he has like the desk customized so he could go under there and take a nap, and nobody can see him.
Yeah, well, that's the funny part of that is because George finally doing okay for himself. He's off welfare. He's
Yeah.
And he's working for the New York Yankees.
He turns himself around with the opposite day,
and
right?
then he's
when he does everything.
And then
all of his impulses, he
hires a guy to construct a place where he can take naps during the day. He's just totally fucking it up. Downtown.
But then things start to fall apart because you got Jerk Store in there. You got that whole scene. Hey, George, the ocean's calling. They're running out of shrimp.
Oh, yeah? Well, I had sex with your wife.
His wife is in a coma.
Happy Festivus, everybody.
Can I make my one contribution?
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So this clip is the one that caught my attention from Seinfeld. Like, first thing I saw on social media, it's the marine biologist.
I don't know what you had to tell her that for. You put me in a very difficult position, marine biologist. I'm very uncomfortable with this whole thing.
Yeah, with all due respect, I would think it's right up your alley.
Well, it's not up my alley. It's one thing if I make it up. I know what I'm doing. I know my alleys. You got me in the Galapagos Islands living with the turtles. I don't know where the hell I am.
Well, you came in the other day with all that whale stuff, the squeaking and the squealing and...
Look, why couldn't you make me an architect? You know I always wanted to pretend that I was an architect.
There's a beached whale. She's dying.
Is anyone here a marine biologist?
Save the whale, George. For me.
The sea was angry that day, my friends. Like an old man trying to send back soup in a deli. I got about 50 feet out, and suddenly, the great beast appeared before me. I tell you, he was 10 stories high if he was a foot. As if sensing my presence, he let out a great bellow. I said, easy, big fella. And then, as I watched him struggling, I realized that something was obstructing its breathing. From where I was standing, I could see directly into the eye of the great fish.
Mammal.
Whatever.
Hey, what did you do next?
Well, then, from out of nowhere, a huge tidal wave lifted me, tossed me like a cork, and I found myself right on top of him, face to face with the blowhole. I could barely see from the waves crashing down upon me, but I knew something was there. So I reached my hand in, felt around, and pulled out the obstruction.
What is that, a Titleist? A hole in one, huh?
Yeah, and Hassel, you talked about the Bookman scene being one of the greatest scenes. That, to me, is the best scene in Seinfeld, because there's some story that George didn't get that monologue until like an hour before.
Yeah.
And that was one of his first takes, and he crushed it. And the pause from... Is that a Titleist?
Yes.
His hole in one. That's one of the best line deliveries of the entire series.
You'll hear a lot of people say that is where the show went from a great show to an all-time great show. Like, that's where it hit the genius gear. And also, Jason Alexander at that point is kind of making his push to be like a serious great actor there, right? I mean, he's like, I think that's the argument you make if you're saying he's the most talented guy on the show.
That's good stuff. Well, we'll do this again next year. What do you say?
Happy Festivus.
I feel like we could do 10 episodes on Seinfeld. This one was kind of just like a smorgasbord of...
Could do just a bunch of different things like Keith and Andy do with different movies. Like, to me, it's always fascinating. I would love a list of all of the random voices that you hear in Seinfeld that are Larry David's voice.
Yeah.
Where you don't even see him. Like in the marine biologist episode at the end. Is anybody here a marine biologist? That's clearly Larry David. But when you were watching it, you had no idea.
I didn't know that until you just told me.
Oh, yeah.
Steinbrenner, that's Larry David.
Yes.
That's such a funny character, too, Steinbrenner. And oh, my God. And we didn't even get into Jerry's parents at all.
No. Good stuff.
Yeah, we could
take
do...
the pen. Just take the pen.
Just take the pen. Yeah, Jack Klompus.
It's an astronaut pen.
We need to break it down. Episodes where we're like, okay, this is going to be George's jobs episode and Elaine's jobs and the extra characters and that kind of
Jerry's
stuff.
girlfriends could have a whole episode.
God.
All the like hot women Jerry dated over the years who went on to become famous actresses.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Jerry's girlfriends. Yep. That's an episode in and of itself.
There was one time, Hassel, I was watching, it was some movie, like an action movie, and Bookman was in it. And it drove me freaking crazy. This is like 20 years later, and it was just driving me nuts. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? And I'm like in the theater, I'm like, Bookman! Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that. Guys, I love you. This is one of the things we all had envisioned when Keith and Andy came over here doing more stuff like this. It's been kind of a crazy 3 months, but we're going to do more and more of this stuff. Aiden, thank you. I know that was a lot of work.
It was an honor. It was an honor.
Well, we're glad to have you. There's very few people that can hang with us in these references, and you're
wants
one of them.
to.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's the biggest key. Who really sees value in it. So thank you. This was fun tonight.
Yeah, Happy New Year, guys. Thank you so much for bringing us on. All the work that you guys have put in to lay the groundwork for Iowa Everywhere. We have a really exciting future, but if you hadn't put in the legwork in the years preceding this, you would have never been there for us this year. And I just can't tell you, this has been the single biggest way that my life has improved this year, or maybe in the last 5 years. And it's because of you guys, and I love you both.
Wow, we love you too, man. Hassel, we even love you, buddy. 40-year-old Chris Hassel.
40-year-old Chris Hassel.
Yep. I remember celebrating Andy's 40th birthday like 20 years ago at Cooney's in Beaverdale. Just a big old pizza party out there, just drinking like a fish.
That's when Joey the Worm, maybe. What was he doing? He had to drink that Smirnoff Ice.
Oh, when you got iced. That was during that whole
that fad. Yep.
God.
Kahala brought me that. Kahala, who was pregnant at the time, brought us all those pizzas over at Cooney's. That was
That's how you know you got a great woman right
pregnant
there.
with Elin at the time, and Elin's 13.
Very cool.
So there you go.
And Aiden was in elementary school.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate you all. Thank you to our good friends over at the Lonely Oak Distillery, Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Not only they make a great whiskey, they're awesome people.
Making me jealous. I got to go back to work. I can't drink.
Damn. I'm going to pour me another stiff round.
Just kill the bottle.
Just
lip the bottle.
That will absolutely happen tonight. There's no doubt about that.
Hannigans.
Right, everybody have an awesome holiday. We do have on the 26th, so this is airing on the 23rd. On the 26th, we do have a best of two guys that Van Winkle's put a ton of hours into editing all sorts of bits and clips and stuff from the last year. So you guys will look forward to that coming up on Thursday. Is that Thursday? I don't even know. Nobody knows. That'll be on the 26th. I promise.
That's Thursday.
Okay, yes, that is on Thursday. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And then, Andy, you guys are taking Christmas Day off. You'll be back on Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, that's the plan for Murph and Andy. And then we'll have all of our other shows. This might be a little bit off on the timing, but we appreciate you all tuning in. Happy Festivus for the rest of us. And we'll be back normal schedule coming up here next week. Later.